it's 2020, the start of a wonderful new decade. I've woken up fully clothed, as I always do when I have to make a sketch for YouTube. I'm ready to take a look outside and see what 2020 has to... the world is ending. Okay, yeah, this year has been pretty awful, but at least the games we've been playing along the way have been amazing. Before we get to the list, I want to say I hope you and your family and friends are safe and healthy, and if things aren't going great right now, it will get better soon. Please take care of yourself. On to the subject of the video, I need to state that this is my list and my opinions, and sadly I've not played every game this year. I haven't had time to play Final Fantasy VII Remake, and Animal Crossing is a series I just couldn't get into, so I have not played this one, among other games. I also didn't have time to play all of the PS5 launch titles because, holy hell, there were a lot of them. That said, there were a ton of other amazing games, so let's get into them. The calm of running through fields, feeling the wind blow across your face and hearing nothing but nature taking its course. It's such a wonderful feeling. And then the fury of Satan's piles erupting smothers you and it becomes the most intense feeling you've ever encountered. That's the Pathless. This game is so wonderful in its movement. As long as a target is on screen, the character will hit it and gain a boost of speed. You naturally have objectives to fulfill, but you can just travel and roam without a destination, and it feels so satisfying discovering new parts of this beautiful world. But seriously, the Fury Realms are genuinely so intense. That calm you feel is completely eclipsed. But then you can pet the eagle to heal it after this zone and all is right with the universe. What a wonderful game. SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated is a mouthful of a title, but the game itself is a wonderfully faithful remaster for the most part. Those who loved it as a kid will get all giddy again, and those who are discovering it now will have a great time unless you're GameSpot. What the hell is this? That said, it's not all perfect. This game has some of the most agonizingly boring grinding I've ever encountered in a game, where I spent over an hour just breaking the same idle heads to get collectibles. I wouldn't mind it if it was optional, but if you want to 100% the game outside of getting some bonus stuff, you have to do this. They made it so you needed nearly 3 times the amount you need from the original game, and that was already a grind. In the original you needed 39,000, and in this you need 108,000 shiny collectibles. Who actually thought this was a good idea? Apparently it has been reduced in a patch, but oh my god, that is not okay. I can see No Straight Roads being some people's game of the year. It's a fun, peppy, action-driven game with a sublime amount of charm. You play as Mayday and Zook, using the power of rock to take down the evil EDM empire. What follows is 6 extremely fun, varied bosses and a killer soundtrack. Oh my lord, the soundtrack is legendary. Though the biggest surprise is that they announced a Christmas update with all of the bosses having a Christmas makeover, including the music. What an absolute treat this game is. Shantae returns to dance through the danger in her greatest adventure yet, and it is sick. Shantae is quick, her transformations are slick, her hair will flick, the enemies are thick. You can work out which interpretation of the word I wanted to stick. There's still a piece of apple in my teeth, I need a toothpick. I'm going off topic. Going back to the Metroidvania route certainly does the trick. When looking for rhymes of the word lick, RhymeZone recommended slippery dick. Okay, that's enough rhyming for now. Seriously, Shantae and the Seven Sirens is the best Shantae game in my eyes, and can fully recommend it if you're a fan of Metroidvanias. It takes what's great about Shantae, makes it better, faster, more expansive, cuts out the filler, and nails the vibe. Well done, Shantae. The game studio Young Horses got tired of waiting for Sony to make a new Ape Escape and created Bug Snacks, a game where you trap delicious food to transform parts of your body. Don't worry, there is no kink shaming here. This really is a combination of Ape Escape and Pokemon Snap. The Bug Snacks themselves are so adorable and the people you interact with are fascinating. There's a lot of depth here. Despite its obscure setting, the atmosphere is very real, and you'll learn about all of their likes, their dislikes, and their insecurities as you solve a troubling mystery. And that's just for starters. If you want the main course, you'll have to experience the game for yourself. I'd recommend playing the PS5 version for the cherry on top of the dessert though. The haptic feedback makes activating each trap or taking each picture feel so much more real. Even a game so layered with fiction can become a reality. Fall Guys, the game that everyone played for 3 months and only for 3 months. I don't really know what happened, but after Season 2 began, everyone just stopped playing the game. I guess fatigue kicked in? Fall Guys is a battle royale party platformer inspired by shows like Takeshi's Castle, Ninja Warrior, and Total Wipeout, to name a few. Honestly, it's surprising it hadn't been done before, but it's extremely fun. Whenever I go and play it, I have a great time, and that's because I find it hard to get angry at the game. The game is just insane, and that's a huge part of the fun. You do get the players who will grab you, and I hate them, and they can go fall into a pit filled with melted beans, but other than that, it's just silly anarchy. I also appreciate the winter theme for Season 3. We need more Christmas games! I'm worried that Don't Nod will hit the Telltale Games wall. They're releasing so many titles, eventually one of them will be a boring failure. Thankfully, Tell Me Why is the biggest hit they could possibly achieve. Let me tell you why! There's a very intriguing story going on in this game, but I don't want to talk about any of that. It's worth playing it for that, but what's most important is the trans representation. The game is wonderfully positive. The main character, Tyler, is trans, and whilst there's a lot of little references prior to the game outright telling you, it feels so naturally implemented into the story, and that's fantastic. The entire game handles Tyler respectfully. Even people in the story who are ignorant of such things are handled well, so I have a lot of respect for Don't Nod and the people who wrote the game. The trans community is horribly attacked for existing from people who are ignorant or wish to spread hate, and I love that this game exists to teach people about these issues in a very respectful way. We need more games like this. Immortals Fenyx Rising is an action-adventure game set in an open world where players are tasked with exploring the land of Athens. Calamity Typhon has wiped out the gods, and only one person remains to stop them: Fenyx. As Fenyx, players can perform actions such as running, climbing, swimming, and gliding with the wings of Daedalo, although Fenyx is limited by his or her stamina. Okay, I can't do this anymore. I was just taking bits from the Breath of the Wild wiki page and changing the names. The contrast is certainly there, both in how it plays and looks, but honestly the game is an absolute hoot. The combat is hectic and expansive, the puzzles are super fun, and I loved exploring the world. I also recommend playing the game as the female version of Fenyx. The game has fully voiced cutscenes for either, but the sassy nature of Fenyx as a woman is so good. I can't hear it working as the male voice. Fenyx is female in my canon. Spider-Man Miles Morales is a shorter title bridging the gap between 1 and 2, but just because it's shorter does not mean it's bad. Oh no, far from it. It takes what the original game sets up, gives you all those abilities from the get-go, and then gives you even more. It's so extravagant in the action scenes you experience and has me even more hyped for a sequel. This is setting up something big in the next game, and since that will be a PS5 exclusive, I can't wait to see what they can do with that technology. It's why I'm so excited for the new Ratchet & Clank game. Miles is a PS4 game first and foremost. Ratchet is not. We'll soon see exactly what the PS5 is capable of. Persona 4 pulled me out of a depressive slump back in 2014, so I've always adored this game, but I never thought I would see Persona 4 Golden get ported to PC. This is the definitive version of the game, and it makes me so damn happy. I laughed, I cried, I raged at how difficult the early game bosses are, and I fell in love with it all over again. This game is not perfect, but its imperfections make it perfect to me. You'll never see another cast of characters like this. You'll never see humour and heartbreak turn on a dime like this. You'll never see twists and turns so elegantly pieced together like this. This is a pretty lengthy game, and yet, it's only $20. What an absolute gift. I truly hope Atlas brings more games to PC. I will gladly pick them up. The only reason this isn't higher on the list is because it's a port, but regardless, it's a welcome one. Before we move on to our top 10, I'd like to briefly list some honourable mentions. The PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and Series S. Whilst Microsoft's new console is more powerful, unfortunately it just doesn't have a stellar launch lineup when you compare it to the PS5. Astro's Playroom, Demon's Souls, Sackboy, Miles Morales, Bugsnax, Godfall, The Pathless. This is an exceptional launch lineup. Not to mention a new Ratchet game in a couple of months, plus Horizon, Gran Turismo, God of War, and much more. Sony is absolutely killing it so far. The launch of the console itself could have certainly gone smoother, but I am loving the PS5 right now. That said, massive respect to Xbox Series S. A next-gen console for $299 is insane, but maybe not as insane as the Xbox Game Pass. If you don't want to get a console and are content with PC gaming, the Game Pass is basically the Netflix of gaming, with almost every Microsoft game coming to Game Pass PC and console on day one. There are a couple console exclusives, but not many. But they keep adding a ton of games every month, and there's stuff I've wanted to play for ages. You'll never be short of games to play on Game Pass. The first 3 months is only $1 too, so it's worth trying to see if you like it. I think it's brilliant. Kingdom Hearts 3 released a huge DLC with 18 new bosses, 14 of which are extremely tough, just the way I like it, a photo mode, a ton of challenges, various updates to make the game smoother, and a bin to place my sanity. I've taken down the super bosses on the hardest difficulty with all the pro codes, which basically means I have 0 attack, 0 defense, I can't use cure or items, my health and MP are draining, among other things. It is a ridiculous challenge, but I love that this option is here. It was just so fun, even though it was frustrating. Crash Team Racing updated a couple more times, adding tougher time relics that I cannot complete no matter how hard I try, but they also added 2 new tracks which are easily some of my favourites, and you can play as a crate! Man, this game is a masterpiece. Persona 5 Strikers, known as Persona 5 Scramble, released in Japan, and it is awesome. But I don't cover region-exclusive games in this since most people haven't experienced it, so we'll save that for next year. It's out in February, so get hyped. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition was released, and I absolutely adore it. I find it fascinating how there's so many mechanics in play all at once, colliding with each other, and yet it never feels oversaturated or confusing. It all blends together perfectly, and is an incredibly satisfying ride. The only reason it's here is because I've barely played it due to time, but I'm definitely playing more of it in the future. Dreams officially exited early access this year, and since then we've seen some truly beautiful games start to take shape, including a collaborative horror game between Media Molecule and the community. Things like this are truly beautiful, and I can't wait to see how this game expands each year. Among Us rose to spectacular heights as the new greatest way to hate your friends outside of Mario Party. Among Us didn't actually release this year, but I'd be remiss not to mention it. It's a thrilling game where I can never seem to be the imposter. I've played over 20 games and have only been it once. What is up with that? Just let me show off how terrible I am at lying to my friends. And finally, Card Hog is a wonderful card game that's extremely easy to pick up and play, but tough to master. Instead of creating a deck, you move through the cards with the intent to survive as long as possible. It's less than £3, so there's no excuse not to give it a go if you like what you see. Also, my friend Emil, who's in many of my videos alongside me, has created all the art for this game, alongside many things for my channel. He's an incredibly talented artist, so if you're looking for someone to create art for your project, message him on Twitter. It's always worth it. Alright, let's get to the top 10, shall we? The Last of Us Part 2. I have never seen a game that's been so divisive before. People either love it, or truly hate it, and for me to explain why I enjoyed it, I'm going to need to spoil it. So if you don't want spoilers, skip to the timestamp on screen right now. 3, 2, 1, let's go. As I talk about this, all I ask is that you hear me out and try and respect my perspective as I respect yours. Thank you. The Last of Us Part 2 was leaked prior to launch, and a lot of people were furious with the story. It's impossible to know if opinions would be different if things weren't leaked, and who knows, maybe this will be classed as a classic in the future, but people were livid over the inclusion of Abby. Abby is a woman who has been directly affected by Joel's actions at the end of the first game and kills him in revenge. This happens very early on, and I sort of figured this would happen. Naughty Dog made it no secret you would be playing as Ellie for the majority of the game, so I figured he would die to drive the story on. The interesting thing about this is you actually play as Abby for half the game. I think it's a fascinating dynamic because you play as the character you're supposed to despise. Not many games or forms of media give you the opportunity to fully experience the other perspective in such great detail, and it's actually fairly effective. The negative side of this though is Abby did kill a fan favourite character, and all that's left for people is seething rage, especially if the first game is something you're massively attached to. So, why didn't I feel this way? The answer is actually the leakers themselves. If you streamed a game early or been at a stream where someone's playing the game at launch, you'll see a bunch of arseholes trying their best to spoil the game for people. People kept saying certain phrases I despised. I'm going to quote these are not my words, but people kept calling Abby quote-unquote tranny scum or tranny bitch, and kept saying she killed Joel and Ellie. The term tranny is massively derogatory. This right here angered me to no end, because it seemed that people were either massively transphobic or were using that side of her as an easy way to insult the character. Problem with that, aside from it's disgusting, is it's not true. Abby is not trans, she's just incredibly muscly, nor does she kill Ellie! Either way, because everyone was going out of their way to hate her in a way that appeared purely transphobic, I wanted to like her. I had a desire to not treat her the same as what the internet was treating her, and that gave me a different perspective on things. Now of course, there are other problems with the game, one of which is a character named Lev. Lev actually is trans, and is sadly dead named. For those who do not know what dead naming is, it's referring to a trans person's original name without their consent. It's their secret and story to tell when and if they're ready. To do otherwise is disrespectful and disgusting. I can see why this sparked outrage. But Lev is dead named by an enemy of the game in passing, and when Abby hears this after the battle is done, she asks if Lev wants to talk about it. Lev says no, and then Abby moves the subject on and is incredibly respectful to him. I can fully understand why this is anger-inducing, but what I think is important to understand is this is an education for anyone who is not trans or not that prominent within the community. I had absolutely no idea that this was a thing, nor did I know it's as harmful and damaging as it is. Through this controversy, I have learned about it. I'm sure there were better ways to handle it, as evident by Tell Me Why, but I think it's still a good education for me personally. I will never even think of dead naming anyone because I know how hurtful that is, and I wouldn't have learned without this. As I mentioned earlier in the video, Tell Me Why also has a trans character, and it is wonderfully respectful and wholesome. It doesn't mention dead naming in the game, and that's great. But I think I would have asked a lot of questions, or made some poor judgment comments, not knowing that statements like that can be damaging. Like asking what Tyler's original name was. And ultimately, The Last of Us 2 taught me that. That's my personal takeaway, but I can fully understand why it's upsetting for people. On a different note, the gameplay from the first is greatly improved. You have so much choice in how you tackle each scenario, and I love the different setups that this game has. The best and easiest example is this terrifying but strangely beautiful underground train station. There are humans and clickers, and you can get them to fight each other by making noise away from you. It's incredibly satisfying to work out and watch it unfold, and the game is full of that. There are tons of different locations in the game I can think back on fondly that has excellent design that kept me on my toes. The news studio was intense as hell, the flooded mall had so much variety in how I tackled every challenge, the descent of the multi-story apartment complex was just epic. I was so on edge with every passing room I went through, not knowing what would show up. That's the kind of design that you don't get just anywhere. But on the other side of things, to add more criticism, Naughty Dog, please fucking treat your employees with respect. Every company should. It's not hard. How about companies set the release date for later than anticipated, and maybe then just be like, surprise, we'll release it 2 months early without working our staff to the point of death. There are a couple of studios in this list that have had some troubling stories come out about how their staff are treated. Stop abusing your workers. It is not hard. Ultimately, I enjoyed my time with the game. Okay, maybe enjoyed is not the right word. This isn't a game you enjoy exactly. It's dark, heavy, and disgusting for most of it. I'm not a fan of horror. I'm terrible at shooters and stealth games. And yet I kept wanting to play more until the end. Even if the game was massively depressing, because Jesus Christ, this game doesn't let you breathe joyful breaths. It just keeps beating you down until you get sadder. But that's the story it's trying to tell, and it will not be for everyone. I think if I played this when I was depressed, I would have hated it. But I'm in a good place now, and I'm glad I was able to experience it for the lessons learned, and the level design was top notch. Do I think it deserved the awards it received? No. But it certainly does succeed in many areas, and to ignore the good would be silly. I received Hades a couple days ago from my friend, so I haven't played too much of it, but from the small amount I've played, wow, it's good. Supergiant Games have released Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre, which have all been overwhelming success stories, and somehow I've not played any of them. This is the first title of theirs I'm getting to play, and I'm already in love. From gameplay to art to music to difficulty, it all melds together beautifully. It's easy to play but hard to master, but with each failed attempt you'll grow more powerful and ascend to victory. The combat is so fast-paced. It's tough at times to realise where you are, but it is so unbelievably satisfying to play, win or lose. If you haven't played a Supergiant Games game before, you owe it to yourself to try one. It's worth all of your time. Sackboy: A Big Adventure is like a big hug. It's warm, comforting, and familiar. The game is a masterpiece in design. Every level has so much care and detail placed in it, and the collectibles are hidden really well. I've spent a couple playthroughs looking for some of them. I'm sure there are some who will be disappointed that there's no creation mode in this game, but I'm not. It's not a Little Big Planet game, and it excels at everything it does. Besides, there are rhythm levels where everything moves to the beat of songs like Britney Spears' Toxic, and that sent my body into overdrive. That was a true gift. Also, for a quote-unquote kids game, it was really hard in some places. The Knights challenges are pretty tough, but the final one is an onslaught of beating all of them in one go, with only 2 hits. It took over 8 minutes per attempt and nearly 90 minutes overall. Honestly, it puts Mario's final gauntlet levels to shame. It was a true test of skill which I respected a lot. Will we see another Little Big Planet? Maybe, maybe not. Dreams has sort of fulfilled the need, but either way, I eagerly await what Sumo Digital makes next. There's some true talent in that team. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is beautiful. As 2D Metroidvanias go, they don't get much better than this. The art will warm your heart, the gameplay will blow your mind, and the story will caress your soul. If you're looking for creative, immersive level design, this has it in every nook and cranny. The level of control that you have as Ori is beyond exceptional. You're nimble and precise, which is exactly what you want for a game with as much action and excitement as this one. Just look at the kind of level design this game provides. It's so damn fun and wonderful, and it makes me so happy to be able to experience it. And that's what games are. Experiences. Nothing can take that away from us. This game is a masterpiece, and yet, it's only at number 7. 2020 has really spoiled us with games. Sucker Punch really delivered this year. Ghost of Tsushima is one of the prettiest games I've ever played. It's hard not to get sucked into the gorgeous world clouded by war. This is based on a very real war, with some noticeable differences. Originally, the Mongols were stopped by a typhoon, which was later known as the Kamikaze or Divine Wind of 1274, which is where the word originates. In this, you are redeeming your honour and taking out the Mongols with your allies one by one. I presume the change was because, and no disrespect, I don't think the game would be that interesting if you lost the first battle, a wind showed up, and then the credits rolled. It's incredible how you can feel totally overwhelmed by 10, 20, sometimes even 30 enemies on top of you, and yet your skills and abilities can get you out of that kind of situation alive. Of course, if you're not the worst in the world at stealth like I am, there won't be that many Mongols left, but still, it's impressive to me that it's not the end of the world if you're good enough. It's really one of those tough to master combat systems, but it's a thrill to pull off a clean kill every single time. And some of the action sequences, wow, they really go above and beyond to make you feel like you're there. It's quite beautiful in a tragic, this really happens around the world kind of way. Time and technology has advanced, but the same old problems exist. Sure know how to bring the mood down, eh? Let's bring it back up. The game is so beautiful. Oh my god, I could weep with how beautiful this game is. Just look at it. Rayman's back, baby! Because of the fans! Well, actually, one fan named Raymani, who remade the first Rayman to be the definitive version of the game. Rayman Redemption contains the best bits of each version of the game, with brand new levels, bosses, gimmicks, collectibles, minigames, a boss rush, and much more. This is completely free to play, so I fully recommend downloading it and experiencing the best of Rayman 1. Raymani has made something truly special here, and he's not done yet. He's working on a Rayman level creator, including lots of custom features not present in his game or the original, and is even including elements from the prototype Rayman 2. How cool is that? Thank you so much, Raymani. Oh, Astro's Playroom. At one point whilst playing this, I said if I was a kid, I would love this. And I'm sure I would. But this isn't accurate. This was not made for me as a kid. As a fan and follower of PlayStation since it began, this game was made for me now. Astro's Playroom is a game to show off what the PS5's new controller can do, and I'll get to that in a bit, but it's filled to the brim with reference after reference of the best parts of PlayStation's history. From consoles and gadgets to the characters themselves, both big and obscure, this game is a celebration and the perfect nostalgic boost for any fan. I can't sing its praises enough. Now the controller. This is nearly impossible to describe without you experiencing it, but I'll try. Every step you take as Astro, the vibration will produce the lightest pulse, but it felt so natural and so subtle, I genuinely didn't notice it for about 30 minutes. Anytime something happens, like rocks crumbling off a cliff, the vibration is designed to mimic it perfectly. If a tiny chip falls a couple seconds later, you'll feel it. Again, subtly, but perfectly. Then we have the haptics. The L2 and R2 triggers have haptic locks that activate under certain conditions. The triggers tighten to add resistance when performing certain tasks, so if you're pulling back on a bow to launch an arrow, you'll pull around 60% of the triggers before it starts to tighten. Then it resists as if you're actually pulling back on a bow. It is remarkable. There's a minigame with a monkey grabbing onto pieces on a wall. Some of the pieces start to crumble and you can't get up. Then the game tells you to press it lightly. I pressed down probably 10 to 20% of the trigger, and it was enough to recognize it and let me climb without crumbling the wall. It honestly blew me away. I don't need haptic in games that don't have it, but if it can be utilised in a way that feels natural in any or all upcoming PS5 games, then I am all for it. This is probably a feature that won't be that noteworthy in a couple years, but right now, Astro's Playroom has stolen my heart and tugged at my nostalgic strings. I never knew how much I needed this. Thank you, Sony. I have an addiction. Yoko Shimomura has composed hundreds of perfect pieces of music for the Kingdom Hearts series, and Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory scratches the itch I've been suffering for years. I craved a rhythm game, and this year they delivered. So I mentioned I have an addiction. Yeah, it's like chocolate or pretending I'm a duck when I'm in the bath. I can't stop playing it. What an absolute treat it is to play levels to some of my favourite music of all time. It may not be the most innovative game, and it's far from perfect. It left a lot of songs out and could implement some things better, but as a tribute to Yoko Shimomura's work, it's pretty darn good. If you're looking for a huge amount of story, there's a small piece basically serving as an epilogue to Kingdom Hearts 3 right at the end, so don't go into it expecting it to be plot heavy, but it does bridge the gap and has one or two pieces of information that is very interesting indeed. But I'm not playing it for the story, I'm playing for the music, and to get flustered when I miss the final note on a perfect run on one of the hardest songs! Playing online is definitely my favourite part of the experience though. When you're playing multiple songs against someone with equal skill, it is thrilling. And having Heartless flung into my face is a thing I didn't know I wanted, but I'm not complaining. Thank you so much Yoko Shimomura for everything you've done during your career. You have given me so many gifts. Crash Bandicoot is back, and I could cry. Oh, who am I kidding? I have cried. I have waited over a decade for a brand new Crash Bandicoot game, and here we are. In my eyes, this is the best Crash Bandicoot game. No, this isn't the Dark Souls of platformers. This is the Crash Bandicoot of platformers. You will feel pain in those thumbs, and you're going to like it. Sure, it does have a lot of repetition here and there, but I loved every single second of the nearly 90 hours I put into this game. Toys for Bob are geniuses at understanding exactly what makes a Crash Bandicoot level a Crash Bandicoot level, and every single one of these levels and bosses make me so unbelievably happy. No Crash game has had such a diverse set of stages which all feel totally unique from each other aside from Crash Team Racing, and if this is the new precedent for Crash games, then I could not be more excited. I adore the new art style that Toys for Bob has gone for. It's classic with a modern touch, which is just what you need when creating a sequel to a game from 2 decades prior. But the use of colour to make all these worlds come to life is so wonderful. When looking at the concept art, it's like looking at a glorious painting in an art gallery in Paris, and then they transformed that painting into 3D space. The inverted levels are a tad repetitive, and some of them are a little painful on the old eyeballs, but one of my favourite things about them were the hidden gems. I'd see a place when playing through it in the normal version and be disappointed there's nothing hidden there, but when I found the hidden gem there in the inverted version, I was elated. Oh, is it up here? Yes! Yes! There's a purpose! Yes! Yes! Genuinely, I could not have been happier in that moment. It was so satisfying. Love it or hate it, this game has an extreme level of challenge, from its relics, which entirely change the way you play each level, as you have to move extremely fast, to its perfect relics, where you have to clear the level and break all of the crates without dying, to its flashback tapes. The flashback tapes not only reveal incredible backstory to these characters, but they're ridiculously tough 2D gauntlets that I adore. Some of them are so creative despite being purely 2D, and I hope this is a trend in future games. There's a surprising amount you can do with just crates, so bring on more of it. And then finally, the music and story. They nailed it. It's nostalgic and fresh all at the same time. This game is aware of its past legacy and the standards it needs to set to continue the franchise forward, and the people at Toys for Bob absolutely nailed every aspect of this. I can't wait to see what happens to our favourite bandicoots and mad scientists next. Whatever it is, I don't think these adventures will be stopping anytime soon. Thank you so much everyone at Toys for Bob, Beanox, and everyone else who worked on this game. WWE 2K20 catastrophically failed for everyone as soon as the year began. Let that sink in for a second. The game based on 2020 didn't work for people in 2020. Alright? Super Mario 3D All-Stars is such a hot mess. Yeah, it's great that these 3 legendary platformers are on the Switch, but it's not a cheap bundle. They're basically just ports, and they for some reason have an expiration date of March 31st, 2021. I don't understand this practice. Do you not like money, Nintendo? You sure as hell don't like your customers free Melee. Cyberpunk 2077. There's a great game in here. It just needs more time, especially for PS4 and Xbox One. It is sadly a broken mess, and that is such a shame, because there really is a good game in there, and everyone was hyped for this game. Outside of that though, it's come to light that the working conditions are not great, and that's not to be celebrated. This should not be standard practice, it's that simple. I am really looking forward to playing this one day, it's going to be great, but not now. Alright, are you ready for the true number one? If you know me, you probably know what it's going to be. If you were to ask me what my favourite game of all time is, I would say Persona 5. Well, move over Persona 5, because Persona 5 Royal has strolled into town, and it is literal perfection. The original game was a 10 out of 10, no question, but Royal improves on pretty much everything. Was a section of the original bizarrely long and a little boring? Let's shorten it in Royal. Was a puzzle implemented once and then never used again? Let's change some of the rooms where little happens and make the design more engaging by reusing and improving on that puzzle. Let's take these superb bosses and give them an extra or different phase to add more variety and depth to them. Let's add extra characters and scenes and backstories whilst also improving the flow of the game. Or how about the Thieves' Den? By playing the game and completing challenges, kind of like additional skill points, you can unlock items in Thieves' Den. This can range from concept art to music to cutscenes and whatnot, but you can also place down bosses and set pieces on spots, and various characters will show up and give a small anecdote about it. It's very charming and adds a lot to the game. Completing all the challenges will take many playthroughs, so if you're up to the challenge of doing it all, you'll be in for the long haul, which is just the way I like it. But you can also change into and play as the other characters in this place. How cool is that? I can be Morgana? Very cool! There is all of that added and a lot more. This game already had easily over 100 hours of content in a standard playthrough, but they added, I want to say 30 to 40 hours more, and it's not filler, or boring, or jarring, or padding, or whatever. It's fresh, organic, without pulp, the purest of juice. Persona 5 had become the new standard for RPGs. Persona 5 Royal has surpassed that and then some. Across both versions, in English and Japanese, I think I've put well over 1,000 hours into these games, and I've loved every single second of it. It's just perfection. I don't think I've seen a better implementation of turn-based combat in a game before. In fact, Persona 5 Royal and Persona 5 has mastered the art of convenience. Every action is mapped to a button on the controller in a very easy to understand way. Even outside of the combat, they've made it convenient, as you can save anywhere, with the exception of dungeons, bar a few safe rooms. You mess up saying the right thing to a confidant? Just save beforehand and load it. Simple. Every enemy and character will have different strengths and weaknesses. Once you learn the weakness, your battle becomes much simpler. You have multiple ways to attack, whether it be a standard physical attack, or magic, or even the gun. The gun in this game is vastly improved. Before it used to give you a set amount of bullets per visit to a dungeon. Now it's a slightly reduced amount of bullets, but it resets each fight, giving you a much greater advantage if you're running low on SP. If you weaken an enemy, you get to attack another enemy, or if you yourself don't have the weakness, you can switch to another party member without wasting a turn, and getting a nice stat increase in the process to deal the final blow you need. Once all enemies are down due to finding their weakness, you can do an all-out attack, which will usually kill all enemies unless it's a boss or you're seriously underleveled. There are also interrogations where once an enemy is weakened, you can interrogate it, giving you various rewards. Depending on your response, you can get items, money, or they'll even join you as a persona. What a beautiful mechanic and what a beautiful game. I mean, look at it, it's one of the most stylish looking games I've ever seen and never gets boring to look at. Oh, and the music, my god! Persona 5 is such feel-good epic music that you just want to listen to anywhere, and I still listen to it on a regular basis, but Royal's new music really does take the soundtrack to new heights. As I said, this game just improves on perfection. Do you know what's crazy though? Persona 5 Royal is the highest rated game of 2020 on Metacritic. Persona bloody 5 Royal! This is astounding to me. Persona 5 Royal, for all its praise, is a niche game. You live your school life, take part in exams, hang out with friends in social situations, fish, hit some balls at the batting cages. It's at times a very slow burn, even if it is always fun, but that's not for everyone. And yet, it has shone as the greatest of them all. Maybe people yearned for the days of school when life was simpler. Okay, now who am I kidding? School is awful. But still, Persona 5 Royal paves the way for companies to see what is possible in narrative design and gameplay. And if we're lucky, we'll see something else come along which truly blows us away in the same way that this game does. Persona 5 was a 10 out of 10. Persona 5 Royal is just in a completely different league. What a masterpiece. Thank you so much to everyone who has worked on this game. I just love it. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, leave a like, subscribe, share the video around. I also have a Twitch, a Twitter, and a Patreon if you'd like to support me and the channel. And don't forget to click that notification bell to see what I upload next as soon as it releases. Tell me, what is your favourite game of 2020? Do you have the same list as I do? Did you move them around? Do you have stuff in here that I didn't have? Obviously there's Animal Crossing and Final Fantasy. But yeah, I'd love to know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for joining me on this 2020 journey. And I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.